All right, today we are tackling something huge. It's this invisible force that pretty much runs our world, from how a country's economy works all the way down to whether you can trust your neighbor. We're going to break down the massive difference between a high-trust and a low-trust society.
I mean, have you ever thought about this? Why is it that in some places a simple handshake deal is rock solid, but in others you wouldn't dream of doing anything without a 50-page contract reviewed by 3 different lawyers? That question, well, the answer tells you almost everything you need to know about how a society is wired.
So what is the secret sauce here? It all boils down to this invisible currency that makes everything work or not work. And that currency is trust. But hold on, it's not the kind of trust you might be thinking of. Yeah, we're not just talking about trusting your family or your close friends. That's easy. We're talking about something called generalized trust. This is your default setting for dealing with everyone else, the stranger on the street, the company you're buying from, even the government. It's the basic assumption that, for the most part, we're all playing by the same rules.
And this one thing creates this huge fork in the road. In a high-trust society, the starting point is, yeah, you're probably okay. But in a low-trust society, the default setting is, I better watch my back, because if I don't, I'll get taken advantage of. That one single difference, it changes absolutely everything.
Okay, so let's see how this one little assumption creates 2 completely different worlds. We're going to look at the real-world impact of this, from the economy all the way down to what your daily life actually feels like.
So just take a quick look at this. You can start to see the pattern, right? High-trust societies, they make it possible to build big, complex things. Large companies, transparent government. Low-trust societies, on the other hand, tend to break things down into smaller units you can control, like family businesses, and they wrap everything in complicated rules, which ironically often makes it easier for corruption to creep in.
Now this gets us to a really important idea: transaction costs. Think of these as the tax you pay for distrust. Let's say you're buying a used car. In a high-trust world, it might just be a conversation, a handshake, and a simple bill of sale. But in a low-trust world, whoa, now you're paying for lawyers, for an independent mechanic to check everything, for a background check on the car. All of that extra time, money, and hassle, that is the transaction cost. When those costs are low, it's just way easier to do business, invest for the future, and grow something bigger than your immediate family.
And you can literally feel this in your day-to-day life. In a high-trust society, you expect public services to just work. You don't see security guards on every corner, and paperwork is simpler. But a low-trust world feels different. It's a world full of bureaucratic nightmares, of so-called facilitation fees to get anything done, and a constant need for guards, gates, and gigantic ironclad contracts.
You know, maybe the best way to think about it is social friction. Low trust is like someone poured sand into the gears of society. It just makes everything grind. Everything becomes slower, way more expensive, and just a lot harder than it needs to be.
So this begs a really big question, right? If low trust is so obviously inefficient and just a drag, why do whole societies get stuck in it? Well, the answer is that these things create these incredibly powerful feedback loops that are really, really hard to break.
See, in a high-trust place, you get this amazing virtuous cycle. People start by trusting each other, so they cooperate. That cooperation makes businesses and the government work well, and when those institutions are successful, it just proves to everyone that their trust was a good bet, which, of course, creates even more trust. It's this beautiful upward spiral. But the opposite is just as powerful. In a low-trust society, you get trapped in a vicious cycle. You start by assuming everyone else is going to cheat, so you feel like you have to bend the rules too, just to get by. When everyone is breaking the rules, of course your institutions are going to fail. And when they fail, it just confirms what you believed all along. See, you can't trust anyone, and the whole thing spirals downward.
So are some societies just doomed to be stuck in these cycles forever? Well, maybe not. Let's dig into where trust actually comes from and how it might be possible to build it, or maybe even rebuild it.
First thing to get is that trust levels don't just pop out of thin air. They are forged over hundreds, even thousands of years. Things like the quality of your government throughout history, legal traditions, major wars, deep societal traumas, all of these leave a huge, lasting fingerprint. And that's why changing a country's trust level is such a slow, generational project.
And here's where it gets really interesting, kind of paradoxical, actually. You would think a low-trust society would need more rules to keep people in line, right? And they usually do add more and more rules. But here's the catch. If nobody trusts the people or the institutions enforcing those rules, nobody follows them.
Piling on more laws in a broken system just adds more friction.
So what's the fix? Well, it's not about giving everyone lectures on being more trustworthy. It's about building institutions that are worthy of people's trust. It means making sure the rule of law is real and applies to everyone, from the rich and powerful to the average person. It means cracking down on corruption where everyone can see it happening. It means making sure the system is fair and predictable. When people see that the system actually works for them, that's when trust starts to grow back.
And that really brings us to the most important point of this entire explainer. We often think of trust as this soft, nice-to-have moral thing. But it's not. It is a hard-nosed, practical economic resource. It's as critical to a society as money in the bank or a skilled workforce. Without it, things just don't work.
At the end of the day, trust is the oil in the engine. It's the lubricant that lets the incredibly complex gears of a modern society turn without grinding to a halt. It's what allows us to build big, innovative, cooperative things. Without enough of it, that social friction just builds and builds until the whole machine can seize up.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, and it's for you. This step doesn't just apply to whole countries. It applies to our jobs, our neighborhoods, even our online communities. So thinking about everything we've talked about, what are the small things we could do right where we are to reduce a little bit of that friction and build just a little more trust?